Silence before the storm. The Galactic War had lasted 6 long years. What started as a trade dispute had become a galaxy-wide conflict. Ships burned in orbit, planets fell into silence, and hope vanished from many hearts. The United Galactic Alliance, a group of over 40 alien civilizations, had underestimated Earth. At first, they thought humans were primitive. When Earth refused unfair trade demands, the Alliance sent a warning fleet. That fleet never returned. No one expected humans to be strong, but they were not just strong. They were furious. Back then, humans only asked to be left alone. They didn't want power, territory, or war. But when a colony on a small planet called Redpath was attacked without warning, everything changed. Thousands of human settlers were killed. The transmission of the attack was broadcast across space. In that moment, Earth's leaders made a decision. They would not seek peace. They would seek justice. The first human counterattack was on the moon base of Drath. In less than an hour, the base was gone, its defense systems sliced through by Earth's smart missiles. Alien commanders didn't believe it at first. But then Earth began taking systems back one by one. The aliens called emergency meetings. They argued, blamed one another, and tried to hide behind treaties. Earth ignored them. Humanity had lost patience. Now, 6 years later, the galaxy was on fire. Captain Dale stood on the bridge of the Horizon Flame, a massive battleship built during the second year of the war. It wasn't just a ship, it was a message. "Report," he said calmly. "Enemy fleet moving near Delta Sector," replied the officer beside him. "They've sent a peace signal." Dale looked at the screen. The signal blinked. "We want peace. No more bloodshed." He didn't smile. He didn't speak for a few seconds. "They didn't want peace when our people begged for it." He said quietly, "Let's remind them." The ship turned slowly, engines glowing bright. Weapons came online. Earth wasn't going to forgive. Not now. Not after everything. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the leaders of the Alliance sat in silence. In a large chamber. The room was cold, the lights dim. Most of them had given up. "We should surrender," one leader said. "They don't want talks anymore." "They want retribution," another whispered. Outside the chamber, human fleets were already moving. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning to change. This wasn't about victory anymore. It was about showing the galaxy what happens when you hurt humanity and expect forgiveness. Their peace was too late. The Council of 40 met again in panic. Inside the Grand Hall, built with crystal walls and glowing blue pillars, the alien leaders gathered in silence. Every race in the room had once laughed at Earth. Now their faces were filled with fear. A large screen showed the latest reports. 2 more planets taken by human forces in the last week. "No warning, no delay, just sudden destruction and control. They didn't even speak to us," said one council member. "No demands, no terms, just attack." "They don't trust us anymore," another answered. "And why should they?" Silence followed. Then someone said what no one wanted to admit. "We brought this upon ourselves." Years ago, they thought humans were soft, too emotional, too forgiving. So when Earth refused to pay unfair taxes, the Alliance decided to teach them a lesson. They sent warships, they bombed Redpath Colony, but the humans didn't break, they united. And now, the galaxy was breaking instead. On the Horizon Flame, Captain Dale watched as the ship closed in on the enemy fleet near Delta Sector. The peace signal kept blinking. He had received 6 messages in just the last hour. Each one was more desperate than the last. He turned to his communication officer. "Send 1 message," he said. "Only 1. The officer nodded. The message was short and cold. "Peace was your choice. You chose war. We finish what you started." Then the fleet advanced. Thousands of drones flew ahead, scanning for targets. Earth's new tech, built during the war, was far more advanced than the rest of the galaxy expected. It learned, it adapted, and worst of all, it remembered. The alien fleet had already started to retreat. They realized peace wasn't going to save them now. Missiles launched from the horizon flame. Precision strikes hit the engines and control systems of the alien cruisers. No one was killed unless they tried to fight. Earth wasn't here to torture, they were here to punish. Back at the council chamber, the panic was growing. We can't stop them. We must surrender now, fully. They won't stop even if we do. Old arguments returned. Some wanted to send ambassadors. Others wanted to flee to the far side of the galaxy. A few even suggested offering Earth full control in exchange for peace. But none of it mattered. Earth wasn't listening anymore. In a command center on Earth, an older woman stood watching the stars on a large screen. She had led Earth's forces for 5 years. Her name was Commander Lee, and she had lost her family in the Red Path attack. Another peace request came in, said her assistant. She raised an eyebrow. From who? High Council of Ralvan. They say they regret everything. She stared at the screen, her voice calm but sharp. So did we when our children died, when our colonies burned, when no one answered our cries. The assistant said, Nothing. Tell the fleet to proceed. This is not revenge, she added, this is justice. In space, the horizon flame stood as a symbol of Earth's will. It carried no peace flags, only firepower, silence, and a long memory. The galaxy had begged for peace, but too late. They were not facing diplomats now. They were facing the final answer. Ghost planets and human shadows. The planet Yava 3 was once a thriving trade hub. Now it stood silent. Its skies, once filled with colorful ships and music from the floating markets, were now gray and empty. Smoke still drifted from crushed towers, and broken alien machines lay scattered across the city floors. The humans had arrived 2 days ago. They didn't speak. They didn't negotiate. They simply took control. The local defense force had surrendered within minutes. No shots were fired. The aliens knew better now. The flags of Earth now flew over every tower. Drone units patrolled the streets. They didn't harm civilians. They didn't need to. Their presence alone was enough. Fear had become a language everyone understood. From the shadows of an abandoned tower, a group of alien children peeked out. They watched in silence as a large human transport ship landed in the city square. Its engines rumbled deep like thunder. Soldiers stepped out, tall, quiet, focused. One child whispered, "Do you think they'll kill us?" The oldest of the group, a boy with gray skin and bright yellow eyes, shook his head slowly. "No. They don't hurt people unless you attack them." The humans began handing out water and food packs to the civilians nearby. Some aliens stepped back in fear. Others reached out with shaking hands. The humans said nothing, just nodded and moved on. The children kept watching. They didn't understand everything, but they knew one thing. These were not monsters. But they were not heroes either. They were something else. Something cold. Something final. Back on the horizon flame, Captain Dale was in communication with Commander Lee on Earth. The transmission was direct, no delays. Yava 3 is secure, Dale reported. Minimal resistance. Locals surrendered before we touched down. Good, Lee said. How did our units behave? As ordered, supplies given. No civilians harmed. Fear is enough now. Commander Lee nodded. We don't need to speak loudly. Our actions speak for us. A short pause. Then she said, "Proceed to the next target, no delays." "Yes, Commander." The screen turned off. Dale stood silently for a moment, looking at the large star map in front of him. Dozens of systems were marked in red, former Alliance strongholds. Now one by one they were falling. There were no human colonies on these planets, no strategic value. This was not a war for land. It was a war for memory. In a council bunker deep below a mountain on a distant planet, several high-ranking Alliance officials watched a private news stream. Footage showed Earth's troops taking over Yava 3 with quiet precision. They don't kill, they don't burn, they just erase us, one said. We offered peace, said another. We begged. A third leaned forward. It's not about peace anymore. It's about making sure we never forget. And then the words came, soft but true. We won the first battle, but we lost everything. On the edge of human-controlled space, a new fleet moved into formation, ships painted black without identification. These were not regular warships. These were cleaners. Drones designed for one job: wipe out military remains, disable comms, remove traces of the enemy's pride. Not even history books would carry the names of those who once mocked Earth. No symbols, no graves, no memory. Above Yava 3, two children looked at the sky and saw the giant ship hovering. Will they ever stop? One asked. The other replied, not until the galaxy remembers what it did. The humans had come, not to take, not to rule, but to make sure no one would ever try hurting Earth again, and they were very, very good at that. Broken councils and shattered pride. The main council chamber on the planet Nostra Prime had once been the center of galactic order. Its floors were polished crystal, and its walls shimmered with light from 1,000 systems. Now those same walls echoed with anger, fear, and regret. 5 more planets lost this week, shouted one counselor, and all without a single battle. They don't even answer our messages anymore, cried another. They don't need to, said the oldest among them. They are answering us with silence, and with ships. The hologram of the human fleet glowed at the center of the room. It showed black warships moving in perfect formation. Cold, organized, relentless. A younger counselor slammed his fist on the table. We should have accepted Earth as an equal when we had the chance. But we didn't, the elder replied. We laughed when they asked for fair trade. We punished them when they refused our taxes. We thought they were weak. He looked around the room with tired eyes. Now we know. In orbit above the planet Draxel 4, the human fleet waited. It had not fired a single shot yet. The enemy fleet had already left. What remained were ground leaders and old defenses, none of which mattered anymore. Captain Dale stood at the viewing deck of the Horizon Flame. The planet below rotated slowly, covered in green forests and silver cities. Orders received, said his comms officer. We're to begin the operation. Have they sent a peace message again? Dale asked. Yes. They used their Emperor's seal this time. Dale took a breath. We still proceed. On the surface of Draxel 4, alarms blared. Buildings were evacuated. Streets were cleared. But no attack came. Instead, small black drones dropped from the sky. They buzzed quietly as they scanned buildings, erased military data, and removed banners and flags. They moved through the planet like wind, gentle but unstoppable. The humans didn't destroy. They erased. Every statue, every wall carving, every military archive, all gone. By the time the sun rose again, Draxil 4 was no longer part of the Alliance. It was part of Earth's silence. Back on Earth, Commander Lee received daily reports from the front lines. The news was always the same. No resistance, no communication, only more planets falling into quiet obedience. She looked at a photo on her desk, a small family portrait, one that had been taken before Redpath Colony was destroyed. Why didn't they listen? She whispered. Her assistant stepped in. The Galactic Council is planning a full surrender. They already surrendered the day they begged for peace, she said. Now they'll just put it on paper. What do you want to do, Commander? She didn't look up. I want them to remember. In the darkness of space, a broadcast signal echoed across thousands of channels. It was a human message. Only 3 words. We remember Redpath. That message reached every corner of the galaxy. Even those who had stayed neutral felt a chill when they heard it, because humans didn't forget, and humans didn't forgive, not when innocent lives were taken. In a small refugee center on a quiet moon, an old alien teacher told his students about Earth. They came from a planet filled with storms, mountains, and beasts, he said. They were built by hardship, forged in struggle, We thought it made them fragile. He shook his head slowly, but it made them unbreakable. A child raised their hand. Will they stop? The teacher looked out the window. They'll stop, he said quietly. When the stars themselves carry their warning. Humanity had spoken, not with words, but with the weight of every step they took, and the galaxy finally understood. The day the galaxy stopped it was called the Black Silence, the day every major Alliance fleet stood down. No battles, no signals, no commands. Just silence. Across the stars, military leaders watched helplessly as their planets were surrounded by human fleets. No one fired a shot. No one dared to. On planet Byros, the local defense general stood by his control screen. He was old, battle-hardened, and proud, but even he knew when a war was over. Tell the men to stand down, he said, voice cracking. We're not fighting ghosts. The humans didn't land. They didn't speak. Their ships just hovered, watching, waiting, as if daring someone to make a move. No one did. On board the Horizon Flame, Captain Dale observed 10 enemy systems now under Earth's watch, all taken without bloodshed, all surrendered with barely a whisper. But the silence was not peace. It was fear, and it was working. He turned to his officers. Prepare next jump, next system, next memory. Another request from the council just came in, the comms officer said. This one from their high voice. Let me guess, Dale said without emotion. They want forgiveness again. Begging for it, sir. Dale stared at the screen. Tell them Earth already answered. It answered with silence. In the heart of Earth's main war command, Commander Lee looked over the council's latest message. This time, they had used sacred terms, words never spoken outside of total surrender. We offer full rule to Earth. No resistance. No challenge. Only peace. Lee read it again. Her eyes didn't change. Do you believe them? Asked her assistant. No, she said plainly. They want peace because they fear us, not because they understand what they did. The assistant looked uneasy. What should we do? Lee pointed to a marked section on the star map. Send our ships there next. That was one of the systems where Redpath's attackers came from. In a small community on planet Pharon, an alien girl held a picture of her family. Her father had once been a soldier who helped bomb human colonies. Now he hid in the basement, afraid to show his face. She watched from the window as human drones scanned the skies. She had heard the stories, that humans had once offered peace, that they had only fought when forced to. Now they brought judgment. Her mother whispered, "Stay away from the windows." But the girl didn't move. Her eyes stayed fixed on the drones. They're not monsters, she said. They're just angry. In the galactic media, fear spread faster than news. Headlines read, Earth rules the void now. No shots fired. Entire system surrenders. Galaxy in silence as human fleets hold the skies. Interviews with former generals. Leaders and scholars all came to one conclusion. Humanity wasn't waging war anymore. It was delivering memory. On a distant moon, an old veteran who had once fought in the early attacks on Earth sat beside a small fire. He looked up at the stars and said, "We made the biggest mistake in history." His grandson, a curious boy, with large dark eyes, asked, "What was that?" The old man looked at him and answered, "We woke the one species that never forgets." That night, across hundreds of planets, human ships lit the skies with quiet, glowing lights. No sirens, no invasions, just presence. And presence was enough now, because the galaxy had pleaded for peace. But too late. And Earth had already begun its quiet, perfect retribution. Earth's judgment. The Council of 40 was no more. What remained was a shadow, a broken group of scared survivors hiding in quiet bunkers across different systems. Their power, their pride, their politics, all useless now. They met through hidden communication lines, voices shaky and full of regret. "We must offer Earth everything," one counselor said. control, power, anything they want. They don't want control, another replied bitterly. They want to make sure we never forget, and we won't, added a third, voice trembling. None of us ever will. For centuries they had believed peace came from power, but now they understood peace came from memory, and Earth remembered everything. Above planet Jorik, 5 massive human battleships hung like silent giants. No threats, no demands, just presence. Jorik had once hosted a secret meeting where the attack on Redpath was planned. It had never been punished until now. Inside a grand alien tower once filled with generals and admirals, all was quiet. Human drones moved from room to room, scanning documents, deleting records, removing metals from walls. It wasn't destruction. It was removal, a perfect erasure of arrogance. In the orbiting command ship Iron Reach, Captain Dale stood on the bridge, with arms crossed. All resistance has disappeared, said his second officer. The planet is quiet. Dale nodded. Then begin the sweep. Let's clean their lies. Understood, sir. He turned toward the window, watching as smaller ships deployed thousands of black drones. In 1 week, the proud planet of Jorik would become another ghost. Not dead, not destroyed, just forgotten. Back on Earth, Commander Lee sat with a small group of war veterans. Their uniforms were clean, their faces tired. These are the last 5 systems involved in the Redpath massacre, her assistant said. Send the signal, Lee replied softly. No fire, no war, just presence. The assistant hesitated, and after that? Lee stood and walked to a window that looked over Earth's oceans. The waves were calm, blue, peaceful, so different from the fires that had burned in the skies. After that, she said, we wait. For what? For them to remember on their own. On a neutral planet, far from the core systems, alien children sat in class. Their teacher pulled down a screen and showed images from before the war, before Earth's fleets darkened the stars. Why did they come? One student asked. Because we forgot they were people too, the teacher replied. We ignored their cries. We silenced their grief. Another student asked, are they still angry? The teacher gave a soft nod. They're not angry anymore. They're resolved, that's worse. Everywhere the galaxy had changed. No new wars started. No more invasions. No more lies. Because above every major planet, one human ship remained, not to conquer, not to rule, but to remind. In the deep silence of space, a single message blinked across the communication lines. It came from Earth. No encryption, no warning. Just 6 words. We are watching. We remember Redpath. The galaxy did not respond, because there was nothing left to say. The echo that never fades. 3 years passed. The galaxy looked peaceful now. Trade routes reopened. Ships moved freely. Cities rebuilt. But something was different. Something deeper. There was no more pride in the way alien leaders spoke. No more arrogance in the stars. Only caution. Only quiet respect. And memory. Above every former Alliance capital, a single Earth beacon remained. It didn't transmit messages. It didn't move. It simply hovered, unarmed, unmoving, untouchable. But its presence said everything. It reminded the galaxy of a simple truth. Earth does not forget. On the world of Rathar, where once stood a war command center, a quiet museum had taken its place. Inside, exhibits told the story of Redpath, of how humanity begged for peace and was answered with fire. One room held no lights, only a single line carved into the stone wall. You taught us silence, we returned it. Aliens walked through the hallways, heads lowered, not in shame but in understanding. Captain Dale, older now, no longer commanded a ship. He spent his days walking through Earth's training academies, speaking to young soldiers not about war, but about patience, strength, and control. One student asked him, Why didn't we destroy everything when we had the power? Dale looked at the cadet for a moment, then replied, "Because justice is not fire, it is memory." Commander Lee had stepped down from her post. She now lived by the sea, far from Earth cities. She often watched the waves and thought of the war. One morning her assistant visited, bringing news from the galactic border. A small outpost sent a message. They say they found a group trying to rise again. Old Alliance loyalists. Lee didn't move. "Did they do anything yet?" she asked. "No. They just saw them gathering." She turned to him with calm eyes. "Then we wait. You don't want to act?" "We don't move on shadows," she said. "Not anymore. We move when the light is clear, and we move only once." In the stars, Earth's fleets no longer patrolled every system. They didn't need to. Because fear was not what kept the galaxy still. Memory did. Children across many planets now learned human history in school, not by force, but by request. Because everyone agreed, this must not happen again. A new day had begun, one where Earth wasn't feared, but respected. In a quiet orbit far beyond any busy space lane, the Horizon Flame sat alone, retired, but still operational. Its hull scarred, its engines silent. One small human team maintained it, keeping it clean, ready. Not because they planned to use it, but because symbols matter. The galaxy knew it was there. They knew what it meant. And that was enough. A single transmission came from Earth that year, broadcast across open space. "We wanted peace. You gave us war. We ended it. And now, we remember. Let memory be our shield. Let justice keep the stars quiet." There was no reply. There didn't need to be, because from that day on, the galaxy never forgot, and Earth never had to raise its voice again.